Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laces Out podcast, our NFL podcast. The regular season is done and dusted. It is over, and we will talk somewhat about that. There's a situation with the stats, but we've got stats. That's what you need to know. We have a somewhat surprise special guest. Find out what I mean by that by checking this podcast out. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Big one, share the podcast around. We appreciate it. We love it. Word of mouth is great for podcasting. If you know somebody that likes the NFL, just say, hey, I listened to a podcast one time. It was good. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out.
Well. Here we are. It's simultaneously the best and worst point of the season. And by season, I mean NFL season. It's a point in time where the season has ended and playoffs have started or are about to start. The playoff football is all encompassing. So you're watching on YouTube, you're like, oh yeah, here we go. He's done it again. He's dropped the ball. No guest. But Paul will be like, you sent me guest picks for games. There has to be a guest. Yeah, I know. And sometimes things just go awry, last minute decision change. Sometimes you have to bench a player. Sometimes it's like, we can't have everything we want. We can't always get what we want, especially when you're trying to get a guest for a podcast. It's just not one of those things. So let's move on. And let's just, what? Hey, what? Hey. Oh, no, there was a guest. That's right, there was a guest. I did get a guest. For anybody watching on YouTube right now, we've got the guest of all guests. He's here. He's graced us with his presence. He's joined us in the fold. Matthew, what are you going by these days? Three-peat? Champ? The champion?
Yeah, I mean, the champ is here.
I think he's going by the name Filthy Slug, isn't he?
Hat trick.
Yes.
Free timer.
Free timer, nice.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I've been setting this podcast up for an entire season, but off there is a little thing called fantasy football, and there was a little dance going on over the back end of last week, and some things were settled, some things weren't, some things are still on the table. Matthew, thank you for joining us. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Very busy. Been doing a lot of interviews this week post the Fantasy Super Bowl.
I saw you were doing a lot of press.
Yeah.
I don't believe what they say about you in the press. I've never believed it. I've always found you to be a fantastic guest. So thank you for taking the time to join us. There was some Week 18 action, finally closing out the season. Some teams did not make the playoffs. Some teams did make the playoffs. We are going to do some things different this week and some things exactly the same. And by the same, I think we should start off with something that feels familiar, like what did Week 18 look like, Paul?
Well, Andrew, Week 18 brought with it the usual, myself, Mr. Cook, and the guest predictions. The guest slot last week was taken by the stats mistress herself, Leanne Davies. So, 16 games to pick from, 3 sets of 16 games predicted. In third place with 9 of 16 selections correct, it was the stats mistress. So she was let down by the Falcons losing to the Panthers, the Packers losing to the Bears, the Bills losing to the Patriots, the 49ers losing to the Cardinals, the Chiefs losing to the Broncos, the Rams losing to the Seahawks, and the Dolphins losing to the Jets. So that's 7 teams that let her down. 9 points correct. There was 1 game difference between myself and Mr. Cook in the predictions, which means with 10 of 16 selections correct and good enough for second place, it was Mr. Andrew Cook, ladies and gentlemen. So he was let down by the Falcons not beating the Panthers, the Packers not beating the Bears, the Bills not beating the Patriots, the Chiefs not beating the Broncos, the Rams. Hang on, I've gone wrong here somewhere. Hang on, let me just do a quick total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I'd say talk amongst yourselves, but
I'm going to say he might have been too focused on his Super Bowl fantasy that he's misled the stats.
Are you going to get a championship belt made up?
Well, I've got two WWE belts, so I was thinking of getting a third. I might borrow one of Stu's, maybe.
Yeah,
it's what the public want to hear. It's what the public want to see. Yeah, so that was correct. Andy did get 6 games incorrect. He had Falcons losing to the Panthers, Packers losing to the Bears, Bills losing to the Patriots, Chiefs losing to the Broncos, Rams losing to the Seahawks, Dolphins losing to the Jets. 6 incorrect, which means that taking the win was myself. I had all the same losses as Andy, but I did take the Broncos to beat the Chiefs, which wipes out that 6th loss, gives me the win, and puts another point on the board. So it means that the collective guest, ends the regular season with 2 points. Andy stays on 7.5 points, but he has that asterisk with the week where he got the full clean sweep. And I moved to 8.5 points for the season as a whole. I was looking back on last season's predictions, and we do carry the predictions over into the postseason. So it's not over. It will carry on for the next 4 weeks, basically. So it's not over yet. Andy can still get the win. Obviously, it is over for the guest, as the guest cannot get the necessary points to be back in the running. So that's the games sorted. The side bet, however, went a little bit something like this. Andy came into the week on 48 points. I came into the week on 51. Andy started off well by having the Ravens to beat the Browns and the Chargers to beat the Raiders. Sadly, he didn't factor in the fact that the Bills would rest a lot of their starters. Had the Bills to beat the Patriots, that didn't happen. He also had the Dolphins to beat the Jets. Didn't factor in the fact that Aaron Rodgers was going to roll the clock back and look like a stellar quarterback. Obviously, the ayahuasca or whatever it is that he's, ingesting was obviously high and flowing through his body last weekend. So Andy moves to 50 points for the side bet. I too started off with a couple of good ones. I had the Buccaneers to beat the Saints and the Texans to beat the Titans, but I had the Falcons to beat the Panthers and the Rams to beat the Seahawks. So I too only got 2 points from a possible 4, moving me to 53 points for the season. The side bet also continues into the postseason, so that is very much not over. However, with the games being now very much reduced, we do only have 3 selections to pick from for this upcoming week. So less chance for points, but it is not over by any stretch of the imagination. Week 18 results done and dusted. Week 18 stats, however, fresh, baked, and ready to come at us, I believe.
So what's weird, the stats mistress was like, okay, apparently there are no stats for week 18. Like, what? Like, yeah, all the stat shops are shut, apparently. So instead, I've got you some teams going into the playoff stats. Now, some of these, as I'm sure these gentlemen can attest to, especially, I apologize to Matt, who, yeah, you might want to take, like, you know, a drink break or even a cigarette break halfway through some of your bits to read, because my word, it was only when I sent them and then I had to edit them down to go, oh, I've sent them with the numbers in the wrong places. My days. There are, so basically it's titled NFL Overview of Post-Reg Season Matchups. Again, a weird one for this one is our usual correspondent has been binned off. Same publication, different person. So credit to Jacob Kamenka. I have almost definitely butchered your name, and I apologize. Our thanks goes to the staff. So it looks a little bit like this. It starts out like this. It sets the scene. Number one is the 2024 NFL regular season is now in the history books, and the league's playoff picture is set in stone. A whopping 12 of 14 playoff berths were clinched ahead of Week 18, leaving just 2 spots up for grabs in the final week of the season. There was still plenty of seedings to be decided before the playoff picture could be finalised on Sunday. Notably, the number 1 seed in the NFC was up for grabs, and the 3 division titles across the conference were claimed in the final week. A small apology before we sort of roll into this. I believe that Paul's runs into Matt's. I think Matt's got like number 2 and Paul starts with number 1. But we'll cover that in a second. My second thing is the first one. For the AFC, it is no surprises. The Chiefs clinched AFC's number 1 seed, 15-1 AFC West winners. I say that fast. First round bye. Obviously, they get that as a prize with their 29-10 victory over the Steelers on Christmas. This marks the 3rd time they will have the top seed and home field advantage during Patrick Mahomes' career, and will face the lowest remaining seed in their divisional round. And my only other one is number 2, Buffalo Bills, 13-4 AFC East winners versus number 7, Denver Broncos, 9-7 wild card number 3. The Bills couldn't mount a challenge to the Chiefs as number 1 seed, but Buffalo did wrap up the conference number 2 seed with its 14-14 blowout win over the New York Jets. The Broncos made it into the playoffs as the AFC's number 7 seed after routing the Chiefs' backups 38-0. Denver could be an intriguing matchup for Buffalo. Broncos allowed just 19.4 points per game, 5th in the NFL, while the Bills score 31.8 points per game, 2nd in the NFL. That strength-on-strength matchup could provide the Bills with an early postseason test, though asking Bo Nix to win his first playoff start on the road in Buffalo would be asking a lot. In theory, Paul, we are over to you for some more juiciness.
Yes, indeed we are. So, the number 3 Baltimore Ravens, 12-5, and the AFC North winners, versus the number 6 seed Pittsburgh Steelers, 10-7, wild card number 1. The Ravens clinched the AFC North yet again by beating the Cleveland Browns on Saturday. That locked them into the conference's number 3 seed and sets them up for a rematch with the Steelers. By virtue of the Steelers' loss to the Bengals and the Chargers' win over the Raiders, the Ravens drew into a classic rivalry matchup in the wildcard round. The AFC North foes split the season series in 2024, but Pittsburgh is on a 4-game losing streak, which should give Baltimore an advantage in this particular matchup. Next up, we have the number 4 Houston Texans, 10-7, AFC South winners, versus the number 5 seed Los Angeles Chargers, 11-6, wildcard number 2. Houston has been locked into the number 4 seed since winning the AFC South in week 15. They will take on the Chargers after Los Angeles managed to overtake the Steelers in the AFC standings during the final week of the season. The Chargers look to get Justin Herbert his first career playoff win, while CJ Stroud will look to win a playoff game for a second consecutive season to open his career. That's the AFC done and dusted. So I'll open us up to start the NFC and then pass over to Matthew. In the NFC, the Lions clinched the NFC's top spot with a 15-2 record and the division win for the NFC North. They get a round 1 bye in week 18, giving them a deserved break. So that week 18 win was, of course, against the Minnesota Vikings, who ended up finishing at the 5th seed. Their first break since a week 5 bye. Detroit will get their week off to recover from their mounting injuries before beginning their quest for the franchise's first, not just Super Bowl, but Super Bowl appearance. Over to you, Matthew, to finish us off with the NFC stuff.
Number 2, Philadelphia Eagles, 14-3, NFC East winners versus the number 7 Green Bay Packers, 11-6, wildcard number 3. Philadelphia won its Week 17 game against the Cowboys to clinch the NFC East, but the Eagles were locked into the number 2 seed after the Vikings beat the Packers in the late afternoon slate. As a result, the Eagles decided to sit their starters against New York Giants rather than letting running back Saquon Barkley seek out the NFL's all-time rushing record. What a shame. The Eagles will now play the Packers, who lost to the Chicago Bears in Week 18 in the first round of the playoffs. Philadelphia beat Green Bay 34-29 in Week 1, a game that was played overseas in Brazil. The Eagles will have home field advantage this time around, while the Packers will be hoping Jordan Love can get hot and lead the Packers to another win as the NFC's number 7 seed. Just have a drink.
Hydration is key.
I'm gonna lie down.
Yeah, just like the Eagles fought for resting Saquon Barkley in Week 18. They are also a set of massive slugs.
Rude.
Terrible. Number 3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 10-7, the NFC South winners versus the number 6 Washington Commanders, 12-5, wildcard number 2. The Buccaneers entered Week 18 in control of the seesawing NFC South. They managed to hang on to it despite a scare from the New Orleans Saints. Then the Buccaneers got an additional favour from the Rams, who lost to the Seahawks to gift Tampa Bay the number 3 seed in the NFC. And today, the Commanders. Washington has emerged as one of the best defences in the NFL, averaging the 5th most points per game, 28.9 in 2024. And Jaden Daniels will provide a unique dual threat option against Tampa Bay's defense. The Buccaneers have a high-powered offense as well, so this should be quite a fun matchup. The number 4 Los Angeles Rams, 10-7, NFC West winners. Boo. Versus the number 5 Minnesota Vikings, 14-3, wildcard number 1. The Rams lost in Week 18, which officially made them the number 4 seed in the NFC. That will give the Los Angeles, the Rams, the unlucky draw of playing the NFL's first ever 14-win wildcard team. So it will be interesting to see if Sean McVay's decision to sit his starters was worth it. Their opponents will be a familiar opponent this season, with the Vikings already travelling to LA for Thursday night football back in Week 8. The Rams got the best of the Vikings in that one, winning 30 points to 20. I forgot about that.
I too had also forgotten about that. When I was trying to work out who the 3 losses that the Vikings had, obviously 2 were against the Lions, and I couldn't work out who that third loss was against. But obviously you cleared it up now.
Something that didn't appear, obviously, as there were no sort of stats as such, but something that was obviously worth mentioning was Mike Evans was on for 1,000 yards, and that would have released a $3 million bonus.
So it was a $3 million bonus, or a $3 million sort of like incentive in his contract. I think, honestly, I don't think the money mattered to him, as weird as that sounds. I think the thing that he was looking for was the fact it was going to be his 11th straight season with 1,000 yards receiving, which puts him second in the list of all-time consecutive seasons behind Jerry Rice. And when they flashed up the list on Red Zone on Sunday, it was basically Hall of Famer Larry Fitzgerald, and the only reason he's not in the Hall of Fame is because he's not eligible yet. And then it was basically, I think there was only one name on there that wasn't in the Hall of Fame, or that wasn't and the only reason that Larry Fitzgerald wasn't in there was because of the eligibility. So I can't remember which group chat it got into, but I'm pretty sure someone earlier in the season said the last time that he didn't hit 1,000 yards receiving was his first year in high school or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that in one of our chats it had come up the last time he'd not done it was school, and I don't think he played. Like, he didn't play football until his last year of school.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like, that's mental.
Yeah, crazy. But obviously he's been beasting it since, like, for the last 15, 16 years, something like that, if he's been in the NFL for 11. So, yeah, quite the player, Mr. Mike Evans. Hats off. And he did that with an injury break in the middle of the season as well. So, fair play to him.
Monster. Absolute monster. That kind of puts Week 18 to bed. It kind of sort of seasons the pan for the playoffs. And we are entering into the playoffs. Obviously, with less games, there's less to pick from. I have done picks for the first round of the playoffs. Matt and I imagine Paul have done some picks, and we will have the side bet cover off.
Just before we go any further, as obviously we're about to go into the sort of Super Wildcard weekend predictions, before we go there, I'll do a little bit of admin, as it were, as it pertains to the season-long predictions.
I was hoping you weren't going to say
that. Well, the reason why Andy is potentially a little bit nervous to go through this section is because obviously back before week 1, both myself and Mr. Cook made our season-long predictions. I'm happy to say my season-long prediction can still occur, although I would be very surprised if it did. So my prediction of a Super Bowl that contains the Detroit Lions, that's looking promising, and the Houston Texans, not so much. Can still happen, looking unlikely. Unfortunately, both Andy and Stuart Woodmansey went for a repeat of last year's Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, one half of that can still occur with the AFC, but sadly, the San Francisco 49ers kept up their incredible record since they last won the Super Bowl of either making the NFC Championship game or swerving the playoffs entirely. So
Did you say
yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs or Chiefs then? I think I might mistake. Is that Chiefs?
Wow.
Sorry.
It's impressive, this, Matthew, because I'm pretty sure that if you go back through the years, is there a team that you haven't accused of cheating? I believe at one point you accused the Seattle Seahawks of cheating because their fans were too loud.
Yeah, it's so off-putting.
Which I just think is brilliant.
I did
so yes,
hear that the Chiefs are going to change the nickname to the Zebras, though. I don't know if that's. I don't know what that's got to do with.
Yes, it's very good. There was lots of people saying that they got a new Chiefs jersey for Christmas and they put it on and it's a Reps jersey. Ha 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 ha.
And refs are going to change to red and white next year.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
It's
So
very
boring.
funny. It's very funny. So yeah, sadly, Andy and Stu's predictions cannot come true. Matt Moores is still up on the table and can happen. He has got the Packers against the Buffalo Bills. Mark and Tony both went with the Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So they've played the percentages, so to speak, and have gone with the number one seed in both conferences. However, Matthew, Detroit
Bengals.
Lions, very much so. Cincinnati Bengals, you almost got this one, Mike. I think we said when you called it in week 14 or whatever it was that you came on the podcast, right? We said that to even get in the postseason, they'd have to run the table, and they did just that. But then obviously the Broncos hanging a loss on the Chiefs in the last week of the season basically put paid to the Bengals being in the postseason. So, yeah, an inspired selection, shall we say, but sadly an incorrect one. So it's only myself, Mr. Moore, Mark and Tony who can still get their prediction spot on.
As it stands at this very point, I feel that I think what's better in this season than last season is my MVP possible pick, because there is something truly spectacular about pre-season. You pick Aaron Rodgers to go MVP and gets injured game one, and that's kind of that. Some say I cursed him, but my legal team are still fighting that one. So yeah, the admin, it needed doing, but I kind of wish it also didn't need doing. I have said for about 10 weeks at this point, if I could take my pick over again, I definitely know where I would be hanging my particular hat as far as predictions go. Yeah, I don't know if either of you have done one of the Super Bowl brackets yet. I know that they've popped up through like ESPN if you're signed up to like obviously the fancy stuff goes through ESPN, so you may get an email saying, oh, do this. You're allowed a couple of picks. I've done both variables of what I think the Super Bowl will look like, and then just picked the other team to win. So, and when you're like, oh, maybe the Texans will win this one, that sort of stuff. So yeah, both teams ended up going the distance, and then I just picked one or the other. So yeah, look out for those. So, first round of the playoffs, Mr. Williams, I have sent you some of my selections. So, any matches, any tiebreakers needed for this week?
So, there's only 6 games. All 3 of us haven't picked the same for all 6 games. So, We have the Chargers at the Texans. Me and Matt have both gone with the Chargers. You have gone with the Texans. Difference of opinion there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steelers. What I'll do is I'll go through all the games, then we'll sort of we can go back and sort of discuss each one sort of. So Steelers at Ravens. Shock horror. We've all taken the Ravens because the Steelers are on a terrible run at the moment. Broncos Bills. We've all taken the Bills. Packers Eagles. We've all taken the Eagles, and I can only presume that's because the Packers kind of lost one of their main weapons at the weekend. And there's question marks over whether Jordan Love's fully fit. But then again, Jalen Hurts is still technically in the concussion stuff.
Yeah,
so
I wasn't sure what the situation was. Like 1 minute he was there, and then he wasn't. And I was like,
I think he practiced this week,
right.
and that's different from the previous weeks. He hadn't practiced in the previous week.
Oh.
Anyway, like I say, we'll discuss each game sort of a bit more in depth when we come back off the break, because we'll be taking a break shot. Commanders at Bucks. This is where we have a slight difference of opinion. So myself and Andy have taken the Bucks. Matthew's gone with the Commanders, and I can only presume that's because he's been riding the coattails of Jaden Daniels all season in his fantasy team. So he's obviously liked what he's seen with young Jaden, and he thinks that they can go on the road to Tampa and get the win. But again, we'll discuss it in more depth. And then finally, we've got the Vikings at the Rams. And even though the Rams were one of the only two teams to beat the Vikings this season, we've all gone with the Vikings to beat the Rams in the final wildcard game. So those are the 6 predictions. Like I said, no consensus picks across the board of all 6. So we should have a definitive winner there. Obviously, myself and Matt have taken the Bucks and Commanders differently. Myself and Andy have taken the Chargers and Texans differently. And Matt and Andy have taken the Texans and Chargers differently, Buccaneers and Commanders differently. Everything else we've agreed with across the board. So, like I say, we shouldn't get a tie in any ways there. We should just get a definitive winner, one way or another, from the predictions. Yes. So we will take a small break there. When we come back on the other side of the break, we'll just go through each of the 6 games and sort of talk through where we think the main sort of talking points and whatnot might be. But yes, don't go anywhere. We're right back.
Oh my days. We are back. Back once again with the Renegade Master. So we've got some games. We've got some games to talk through. Because, normally it's kind of like you've got to keep that pace going, but I kind of like the shift and I hate it all at the same time. I covered that at the start. You know, the regular season's gone and you're in playoffs. But what the playoffs gives you the opportunity, like we've said already, there's literally just what is a very much a handful of games in comparison to like 16 games. Drop down to 6 games. But what that gives us the opportunity to do as a podcast gives us a chance to dwell, some would say, or deep dive into those games. So, Paul, give us the first game.
So in order, not necessarily of importance, but certainly in order of televisual viewing ability. So the first game sees the 5th seed Los Angeles Chargers at the 4th seed Houston Texans. I was going to say this is probably the closest of the 6 games.
I sent
looks a little bit similar. So,
yeah, I sent something through to our group saying apparently the Chargers have picked up the recently released Ezekiel Elliott from the Cowboys. it was one of those. It was obviously bound to go somewhere. I don't think he's necessarily done. He probably did need to drop down a little team-wise. So going to the Chargers probably makes a lot of sense. I think we all sort of did talk a little about the fact that he's not really done overly much in his second stint at the Cowboys. So might get in this game, possibly, maybe. Don't know.
So I think the reason he didn't do that much at the Cowboys was because I believe earlier in the season they were saving him for the postseason.
For which season?
Hey. The Cowboys yet again demonstrated their amazing decision-making abilities.
Yeah, I don't know how well stocked the Chargers running back room is. I know the
injury room's pretty full, isn't it? With,
yes, pretty much. I mean,
JK and Gus.
Yeah, I don't think it's as well stocked as Detroit's injury room. But yeah, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, are they both injured now? Or did J.K. Dobbins play against the Raiders? I think he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or did he get injured and that's why they picked up Elliott?
He's just come back. But I think he's probably going to be questionable.
Right, so I imagine it's the case of they've picked up Elliott because they don't know how much workload Dobbins can get. Yeah. To be honest, I think the main reason I picked the Chargers in this one is because the Texans are just decimated at receiver. I think they're down to fifth and sixth string receivers because obviously Stephon Diggs went out a number of weeks ago. Tank Dell suffered that horrendous injury against. I can't even remember who they were playing against. Was it the Colts maybe? It was something in week 16. Who was the Texans playing week 16? Chiefs. Oh, it might be the Chiefs actually. That was a bad one. I think he basically. I don't think he has a knee left. Basically, I think everything was just torn to pieces and just destroyed. So yeah, I just think that the Chargers probably go into this with a little bit more form and potentially more fit players. But it's one of those ones where the Texans have got the home field advantage. That might count for more than I don't know. So that's why I've taken the Chargers. Any other personal opinion?
I had this was almost a coin flip for me. It wasn't like I went for one of a better way, but it wasn't like I went charging in on the Texans. I picked the Texans because I'm not sure how much I feel the Texans should be in the playoffs. So they've obviously got something going on that's got them this far, and there's a possibility that that's something. I don't want to be too whatever about it, but will fluke them through the first round of the playoffs. It's that weird, if the Texans have a good day, they're quite a good team. If the Chargers have a bad day, they're not going to get through this game. If you put those two things together, the Texans might fluke their way through this, or the Chargers might just simply drop the ball. If the Texans were to go through, I don't expect them to get any further. But I'd probably say the same about the Chargers. I think if the Chargers went through this game, I don't see them going any further. You know, this is what I was saying. I don't even know if we were off air at this point. I was saying, I think if you put all of the teams into like a numerical order and look at who's in the top half and who's in the bottom half, it's kind of obvious which teams fall into the bottom half of the playoffs. Those are the teams that work on the principle are not going through to the next round. It's that there are times when you look at certain situations, when you're a bit like, why are we doing this again? We know which teams are going through. We know which teams aren't going through. But in a game like this, it is a bit of a coin, almost a coin toss. It is a bit of it could be either team. But whoever it is, pretty much that's as far as they're going to go. So it's that, oh, maybe the Texans do it, maybe the Chargers do it. Does it really? Again, I don't want to be too like, oh, but does it really matter? And yes, we could have a situation where one of these two teams weirdly ends up, the last set of playoff games or even making it all the way to the dance. But do any of us really believe that?
No.
Well, I suppose, at the start of the season, one of us specifically thought that the Texans might do it all. But, yeah.
I just think like CJ Stroud has not had a very good season either, has he? So, I mean,
No.
like you said, he hasn't got any weapons.
I was about to say, I think for your Super Bowl pick, Paul, you put a lot on CJ Stroud's shoulders. You kind of basically went, this guy's great, he's going to do well, Super Bowl. And I think to take Matt's point, that isn't how the season's gone. And I do wonder if he might be the factor that if he walks out and goes, we're going to have a good day today, the Texans win. If for any other reason he walks out differently, it's a loss in the Texans sort of column. So I do wonder if he might be the factor there.
Yeah.
Agreed. So, second game, Steelers at Ravens. Like we said before, we've all taken the Ravens. I don't really think we'll probably spend that much time on this one. If the Steelers went into this in any sort of shape of like form or any sort of like anything like that, I'd be more confident that it was going to be more of a contest. But the Steelers just look so like bereft of confidence, and the Ravens look so high on confidence that I think it's almost a bit of a foregone conclusion, this one. However, what I will say is that Steelers-Ravens games are never without, not controversy, but without incident. So something.
What you're saying is you're expecting to see an ejection of some description in this game, and all it's going to take is for the wrong person to get ejected and the next thing. Well, the Steelers won.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think looking at a Steelers perspective, there's the 500 thing. The Steelers they've just never dropped below a certain level under old Mike sunglasses. So it's that thing of the Steelers start every season the same. They're an absolute juggernaut of a fantastic defense with a very sort of fluid off. But again, that some weeks they come out like a juggernaut, and other weeks they come out like a kitty cat, and you just don't know who you're getting with the Steelers. So they have the capability of going the distance, but you're just never sure. Whereas the Ravens are a juggernaut. You've got that tip of the spear with Lamar Jackson, MVP candidate, a running back in a quarterback's body. Every part of that team goes to that point. However, we've always had that problem of he's a little reckless. All it's going to take is a bad knock, and next thing, oh no, the wheels have come off. Because all it's going to take is for him to take one bad knock. I don't know. Maybe if the Ravens went up against a really good defense, what could possibly happen there? It's that kind of scenario of any time Lamar Jackson starts running, you're like, yeah, but yeah, but ooh. So I imagine a Ravens win. We've all gone for a Ravens win, but like I say, one knock, one bump, one dodgy, whatever, and it could be a different story.
I think Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh had any chance, it'd probably have had to be at home for them to beat them. I think playing in Baltimore, they're just nah. It's gonna have to take a freak accident to Lamar for it to get close, I think.
Yeah,
Got Derrick Henry as well, haven't they? So
yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. So the next game, probably a similar outcome, I would imagine. Broncos at Bills. I don't even think it's necessarily that it's that the Broncos are bad. I think it's just that the Bills are that good, and especially when they're at home, that I think the Broncos can probably hang. They'll probably score a couple of touchdowns. I just think it's a case of the Bills will just blow them out of the water on offense.
I'm expecting like a 38-10 for this. I'm expecting literally the Bills just in basketball terms, just dunking on the Broncos. I think the Broncos have done very well to get this far. They've looked, certainly through the second half of the season, they've looked like a decent team and been doing well. I think they've maybe got a quarterback that they can sort of build on. I don't think this is their season for that. I think next season we might see some real differences, especially if they can start to make some moves with like getting, start bolstering that team, get some good players in. All of those things, yes. You're going up against the Bills. Now, I have my opinion as far as the Bills are concerned when it comes to playoffs, and we are going into the playoffs. Not this round, not this game. I don't see anything other than the Bills, for want of a better way of putting it, destroying the Broncos. Just because at this point they are the Bills, and unfortunately they are the Broncos. I think they've done well, but this is, as far as I can see, the furthest they're going to go.
it's the Von Miller derby as well, isn't it?
It certainly
Hey,
is.
did you hear he got a $1.5 million bonus for doing 6 sacks last weekend as well?
In one game?
Yeah.
Nice.
Not bad.
No, well, I think it was for the season. His 6th sack of the season or something.
Ah, right, okay.
He got $1.5 million bonus.
Nice. Nothing to sniff at.
You like to see it. You like to see it. Next up, Packers at Eagles. Now, other than the Chargers Texans game, I think this is the one that I had the sort of the thought process of could go either way. And then I remembered that the Packers had lost Christian Watson in the last game of the season. And there was the fact that Jalen Hurts left the game against the Bears with, it looked like he was complaining about his hand, but it turned out it was his elbow. It was an issue with his elbow. But apparently they said it's nothing too serious and it's something that can be managed. And so that. Of course, we have all gone with the Eagles. But I wouldn't be surprised if this one stays quite tight and maybe comes down to like fourth quarter, last couple of minutes, 2-minute warning sort of timing, if anything. Because I was going to say, because it could even come down to the receivers, because running game wise, I think they've both got a stellar running back that's in the backfield. The thing that might put the Eagles slightly over the top is the fact that their quarterback is a better scrambler than Jordan Love. So I think for me, it'll come down to the receiver call, and I think the Eagles is far, far better than the Packers is currently with the injury to Watson.
Yeah,
agreed. Yeah,
From a Packers perspective, glad they've made it this far. I think they've done well. In some degree, in some ways, it's almost like a young team. Obviously, we had years of Aaron Rodgers there doing whatever he was doing there. You know from day one of the season, the Packers are going to be in the playoff picture from the first snap. It's that they're probably going to be there. They're going to be nipping at some heels. They're probably going to make it. They might go out first, second round of the playoff sort of thing. As it stands at the moment, they're probably not necessarily going to see a Super Bowl in the near future. That's that. On the other side of the ball, you've got the Eagles. Obviously, they're they've seen Super Bowl action in recent times. Their team seems to just go strength to strength to strength. They added a certain running back recently that seems to be working real well for them. And I think this is a game where this is probably as far as the Packers go, and the Eagles will move on. I always feel weird saying this is how this is going to go, because this is the NFL we're talking about. Of these games that we're talking about, there will more than likely be an upset somewhere in there. This could be the game. The Packers could go on, the Eagles could go out, and I'm there next week going, I mean, I didn't see this coming. So yeah, don't know, but I think it's kind of almost set in stone for the fact that I think the Eagles have just got more.
And I think the Eagles did well taking on my advice to rest their star fantasy running back last week. And joking aside, I think he'll probably outplay Jacobs this week, to be fair. I know you said it might come down to the wide receivers, but I can see Barkley going off.
Yeah.
Maybe having 2 or 3 touchdowns.
I imagine the Eagles are going to be like, let's put this one to bed nice and early. So Saquon just absolutely let loose, and let's get this one tied up.
Next up, it's the Commanders at the Buccaneers. Obviously, this is another one where we've got a difference of opinion. I think I've gone with the Bucs because of, I can't think of the word. The word is escaping me. Experience. That is the exact word I'm looking for. So obviously for the Commanders, they haven't been in the postseason for a number of years. Obviously they've got a rookie quarterback. I think for me, the fact that Tampa's been before, Baker's been before, I just think that'll give them the edge that they need to be able to sort of outlast the Commanders. But it's another one where I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way. I just think that for me, Tampa Bay's got a little bit more nous, as it were.
It's that thing that, did I see something that said Jaden Daniels had 11 of 18 Rookie of the Week awards?
Something like that, yeah.
That's mental. That is actually mental, but absolutely deserved. I fully agree. Now, this was the game that I looked at and went, oh, I almost don't want to pick this game. The Commanders have looked pretty damn good all season. And again, almost in a Ravens-esque kind of thing, that has led from that tip of the spear. The quarterback has made the difference to that team. And good on them, they've done absolutely fantastic. On the other side, you've got the Bucs. As Paul was saying, they've done this dance before, they've been there before. I held my hands up last week and said that I'd maybe been a little bit too hard on Baker in past seasons. I think he has absolutely done what he's needed to do to be the quarterback of that team. I did highlight the shoes he was stepping into. They couldn't be bigger shoes. And I do think that as far as leading that team, he has done and is doing a great job. It had to come down to something to pick this, because this was the one that I didn't want to have to pick. And it was absolutely the experience side of things. That the young quarterback / young team versus the Bucs. So that I had to go with it that way in the end. Just saying, I think the Bucs might just have enough to do this. Likewise, it could be one of those scenarios where the Commanders do get it done. I'm not saying it's a definite, but I went with the Bucs in the end.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs have got a lot of star power on them and experience. I suppose the fanboy in me wants Washington to win, like they have a lot of big games this season. They won, and the games that they've won, that have been big games, have been very close. So I think if they're going to win this, it's going to be very, very close. But yeah, I mean, they are up against it, against Bucksy Irving and the boys.
Indeed. So that just leaves us with the Vikings at the Rams. Excuse me. It's taken me until now to realise that they've done AFC, then NFC. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No.
Strange. Yeah, we've all taken the Vikings here. I think we said in last week's podcast, Andy, the fact that it was a bit ridiculous that one of the Lions or the Vikings were going to finish with 14 wins and only be the fifth seed.
Yeah,
which makes a mockery of the whole playoff seeding system.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think even though, obviously Matt covered it in the stats earlier, there was the fact that the Rams were the team who beat the Vikings earlier in the season. I don't know why. I just think that since that, if anything, that was kind of like a wake-up call for the Vikings, and it sort of kicked them back into gear. So yeah, I don't know. Unless the loss to the Lions has sort of messed with Sam Darnold's head, I think they'll have enough to go on the road and get the win here. Personally,
it's that thing, isn't it? I think as far as losing to the Lions, it's second to losing to the Chiefs at this point. I personally think the Super Bowl was almost locked in now, barring some sort of major upset. So yes, you lost to the Lions, but they have got to be the number 2 in all of this. So I don't think that's going to be too much to deal with now. It could be something to deal with further down the line. The Rams are not my favorite team going back to a point in time. They definitely did not hide any financial information to be able to try and buy themselves a Super Bowl. But hey, we're not talking about that right now. I would like to see the Rams go out at this point because I don't feel that they should necessarily be here. And then we can just move on. We can all move on. We can cleanse our souls. And in previous years, I think we would have not liked to see the Vikings go past a certain point. But this year, big up the Vikes. So, yeah, I'd like to see the Vikings take care of the Rams from a personal perspective. I also think from a business perspective, the Vikings have absolutely got what's needed to take care of the Rams. So, yeah, let's get that done and move on to the next round.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That is all 6 of the games discussed in depth. All that's left to do is for myself and Mr. Cook to divvy these up and pick 3 games each, or 3 teams each, that we feel are the absolute bankers of such games. So, going in to the Super Wildcard 2025 weekend, Andy finds himself behind by 3 points So, does he want to make the first selection, or does he want to put me in to allow him to take 2 back-to-back selections next?
It's tempting, but I feel that would leave a possible obvious choice just lying there on the table. So I'm going to take the Bills to beat the Broncos as my first pick.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that. And it's annoying because it means that I'm going to have to take the Ravens. And I really don't want to take the Ravens because even though I picked them, I don't want them going any further in the playoffs. I don't like the Ravens as a team. I don't think they should exist. They basically, let's be honest, they are the Cleveland Browns by another name. Having somewhat adopted the Browns as my team, I have fully bought into the opinion that the Ravens are the devil and nothing good should ever happen to that franchise. And I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I just don't think Lamar Jackson comes across as a nice person. I always just think he looks like a bit of a wrong-un, which is weird. It's weird to say, but
It's cool.
He gives me odd vibes, is all I'll say. But in spite of that, I've got to play for points, haven't I? So I'll take the Ravens to beat the Steelers. Ugh, sick. And I'll take the Vikings to beat the Rams.
I almost went in with I'm going to take my first pick as I hope the Vikings beat the Rams. So my next 2, I'm going to take the Eagles to beat the Packers. I feel that the Eagles just have enough to get that done. And unfortunately, that leaves a very, very difficult situation of 2 games left, and they are what I feel are definitely the closest. So I will have to take the one I think is the easier of those 2 picks, which is I think the Buccaneers to beat the Commanders, which I feel has maybe left you with a very difficult choice.
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going to go. So it's obviously Chargers Texans is the last game, which is interesting because we both picked the opposite way on this one. But I do think that the Chargers will have enough to get over the Texans just because of all those injuries that the Texans have got at wide receiver. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they could just ride Joe Mixon all game and just go with the running game.
Yeah.
To sort of get around that. But yeah. And also there is the fact that I've just picked the Los Angeles Chargers to win a playoff game, which now that I say it out loud, it sounds absolutely fucking mental. So, quick recap. Andy's 3 teams. He has the Bills at home to the Broncos, the Eagles at home to the Packers, and the Buccaneers at home to the Washington Commanders. I have the Ravens at home to the Steelers, the Vikings at the Rams, and the Chargers at the Texans. So, in a strange position, I've gone with 2 road teams to get the win in the postseason. Andy has backed 3 home teams. That basically puts a nice little bow on the end of this week's podcast.
So there we go. We are into playoff football, and what playoff football we have to look forward to. Obviously, this is the road to the Super Bowl. If you want to get yourself a Super Bowl pick in, if you want to do the Super Bowl bracket and send us your bracket and we'll peruse it. I will at some point work out how to make my brackets available for people to look at and laugh at if necessary. Thank you to our fantastic guest. He's taken time out of his busy press schedule to come and join us on our.
I was for you guys.
Well, we were there at the start, Matthew. So I feel, when you're up there at the top of the top, you'll still remember.
Yeah. Never forget where you come from and all that.
We were all 0 wins once. Thank you to my co-host, the man who runs the book, the man that keeps me in check, the man who next week will be hosting. Hosting duties, isn't it? Co-host. Thank you to you for listening, watching, being here. If you do want to check out any of the other podcasts that we have here at the Podcast Network, we have a fantastic football podcast, weekly football podcast. It's there every week, and it's covering all possible games you could want, from Middlesbrough, Hull, and Forest. You check out our wrestling podcast. It's monthly-ish, whenever the it's pay-per-view for me. I believe they're premium live events.
PLE.
Yeah,
PLE is the
premium live
term.
events. Whenever they come up and they're, available, we cover them. And obviously, it is all now covered by Netflix. So pretty much anybody can get involved. That action. We do a Formula One podcast, which is currently off air because the season is not in session, but do check out the previous episodes of that. It's a delight. And if you're not at this point in time tired of hearing my voice, well, then I do a weekly podcast, which is just books and nonsense. I'm apparently working through something, and it's taken me 292 episodes to not get to the bottom of it. So, if you think that sounds insane, check it out. Again, thank you to you guys. Thank you to you guys for listening, watching, and being a part of it. And come back for more playoff football next week. Might have a guest, we might not. Roll that dice. Thank you very much, people. And from us, it's tatty bye. We will catch you next time.
So there you go. What do you think to that? Big thank you to Matthew for joining us. Obviously, he always takes time out to join us where he can, and we really appreciate it. Obviously, with that 3-time champion belt round his waist, it's going to be difficult to get him locked in for future podcasts. So, yes, big thank you there. Big thank you to you for watching, listening. If I can ask a favour before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There are social media links and an email button. What you can do is email us your Super Bowl bracket. Send it to us, we'll read it out, and we'll send you a prize whether you win, lose or draw. How about that? Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
This has been another episode of CookieCast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.